holders. One of the functions of the Congressman's office is that we assist constituents who come to us with issues regarding their Section 8 vouchers. And every week we have at least one constituent calling our office expressing frustration about not being able to find an apartment that will accept their voucher. Just last week, a constituent called our office saying that she gets turned down every time she mentions she is a voucher holder. She called 23 properties and not a single one called her back. Her voucher is for 2 bedrooms and $1,100. At the end of 2015, a large apartment complex was purchased in our district. Our office received a number of calls from constituents concerned because the new owner wanted to renovate it, raise rents, and discontinue taking Section 8, forcing them to find a new home. Another constituent had undergone 17 surgeries to manage chronic health issues and was unable to walk, contacted our office after requesting multiple extensions for her voucher because landlords did not want to rent to her. We have unfortunately heard many of these stories and more than I have time to tell you today. Given the affordable housing crisis we are facing as a community and the challenges voucher holders are facing in this market, Congressman Ellison applauds the efforts of Council Members Glidden, Goodman, and Warsame and the large coalition of renter advocates. Our office knows firsthand that Section 8 recipients experience rampant discrimination in the marketplace. While Section 8 remains a voluntary federal program, it is our obligation to ensure that voucher holders are granted the same dignity, respect, and protection as any other renter. Thank you.
Speaker is Linda Soderstrom. If you can step right in back of Bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Bill Wald, 5750 Lincoln Drive. I am the CEO of the Minneapolis Area Association of Realtors. We have worked with many of you over the time. We strongly support the HCV program. However, the association opposes mandating participation in a federal housing program. Though most single-family duplexes are exempt from the ordinance, we realize that affordable rental housing not only addresses a need for individuals and families, but also serves as a transition point to home ownership for many people. We support the continued exemption of single-family and duplexes along with voluntary participation. We support the creation of housing units both for rent and purchase that are affordable for low and median income residents. However, we believe that minimizing the impact of regulations and fees, such as mandating HCV Section 8, prohibits increased housing costs and reduces housing choice and affordability. Our concern is those who currently rent voluntarily within the Section 8 individuals, even if it's a single-family home or an owner property-owned duplex, may choose to no longer do that under a mandate and sell the property. We would prefer to see the program improve to the point where landlords are encouraged to use it. Our suggestions to the city give some time for the MPHA and its new leadership to make improvements to the program in cooperation with landlords and tenants. Once improvements are made, the reasons for the program burdens becomes less and argument for Section 8 discrimination becomes less. At this point, the city may want to pursue fair housing claims against the most blatant landlords for the discriminatory impact of denying Section 8 voucher holders. We as realtors foster and live fair housing. It is one of our core values and have ethics and professional standards that ensure that those who do not comply with this value face violations. We are committed to working with the council to ensure that fair housing and non-discriminatory practices and behaviors are ended. However, we do not believe that mandating appropriate housing behaviors is the solution. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Linda Soderstrom, and after her is Mary Pidzorek.
Thank you. My name is Linda Soderstrom. I live at 5277 West 82nd Street. I rely upon a Section 8 voucher ongoing due to fixed low income. I would ask the council committee to take the opportunity to pass this ordinance in hope that landlords in their mindset and their business practices will be open enough to remove the words from their advertising. No Section 8 need apply. This is very insulting to apartment seekers. I would welcome landlords to interview each candidate on their own merits without discrimination based upon the family's source of income. Please. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker after Mary is Cecil Smith.
Hi, my name is Mary Kachorik. I live at 3101 Garfield Street Northeast in Wade Park. One of my family members moved here last summer from New York. She works as a nursing assistant and wanted to move to Minnesota to create a better life for her family. She was able to get her 2 kids into a high-performing elementary school in South Minneapolis, but couldn't find any 3-bedroom units in South Minneapolis that would take her Section 8 voucher. We looked for apartments for 3 months, read through hundreds of listings, and contacted dozens of potential landlords. Most of the listings had blanket no Section 8 listed in the advertisement. The only unit she could find was in North Minneapolis on the opposite end of town from the kids' school. So for the last year, every morning she drives the kids to school, and every afternoon she picks them up from another family member's house in South Minneapolis. The kids are thriving in their new school. She keeps a beautiful home, pays her rent, and is an excellent tenant and neighbor. She is starting her apartment search again for when her lease is up this summer in hopes of finding a place within the school's busing zone in South Minneapolis. The proposed changes to this ordinance would help her and so many other voucher program holders get a fair shot at finding affordable housing throughout all parts of Minneapolis. This change would make Minneapolis welcoming to all people, regardless of income. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Cecil Smith, and the one after that is Marty McDonough.
My name is Cecil Smith and reside at 1600 3rd Street Northeast. I am the incoming board chair of the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association. MHA is strongly opposed to this proposal. Our opposition falls into 4 categories, and you'll hear testimony from my colleagues who will explain our philosophical opposition, the business problems created, the impact on the housing market, and the broken Section 8 program in Minneapolis. This ordinance is not the solution to the problem you're trying to solve. We want all voucher holders to have an easier time in the housing marketplace. But that happens through collaborative and creative problem solving and long-term partnerships. This approach is not warranted, and the result has already been a program with all its problems pilloried in the press, cementing a negative view of Section 8. The result is another severely damaged relationship between an industry and city government. But this is nothing new to this council. You seem hostile to business, that which is essential to our economic vitality. This city government is harming new American entrepreneurs like myself. You too often harm those you intend to help. This proposal will do more of the same and displace more of my neighbors in Phillips and accelerate the gentrification of the city. Citizens elect their government to work for them, weighing the priorities, finding common sense solutions that build real change, and as leaders moving their community toward a better future. You have a meaningful solution to this problem. Help MPHA build a functional program that serves all participants. The roadmap has been written. The new MPH director started on that journey yesterday, and we're very encouraged by the recent activity being undertaken. But reform takes time. Just look at your own departments. Police, reg services, CPED, all have taken years to reform. Your energy should be focused on reform, not mandates, on results, not more rules. This government is too progressive to be practical. Please consider common sense solutions.
Thank you,
Common
Mr.
sense
Smith.
solutions before you approve this ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Smith.
Our next speaker after Mr. McDonough is Dan Largent.
Good morning. My name is Marty McDonough. I'm the Director of Government Affairs for the Minnesota Multi-Housing Association. We're a statewide trade association for apartment owners, property managers, and product service companies, and we're headquartered in Bloomington, Minnesota. Our 2,100 members own and manage more than 300,000 housing units throughout the state. And you've heard me say this before, but most of our members fundamentally oppose regulatory overreach by the government into their business. As an already highly regulated industry, any further involvement of government is viewed as onerous and not warranted. Furthermore, being forced to sign the HAP contract with the federal government that Congress intended to be voluntary is a serious regulatory intrusion into a private business. It's especially aggravating in this circumstance because it's a municipal government and not Congress that wants to change the nature of the business and indirectly the terms of a federal government program. Most MHA members view the HCV program participation as strictly a discretionary business decision. As Mr. Russ noted, they work with over 1,200 property owners who appropriately exercise that right under their constitutionally protected property rights. And finally, I just wanted to quickly comment on the process of passing an ordinance in the city of Minneapolis. We think that needs some reform. This actual proposal was first announced on June 5th, 2015, nearly 2 years ago. This is the first and only public hearing on this very important issue, and it appears likely it will be before the full council on Friday. So 21 months with no activity, and it gets 2 votes in 3 days. We think that's wrong. We should be working together on solutions that solve problems rather than pandering to the political process. I think we all deserve better. Thank you.
Next speaker is Dan, and then after that is Christina Hearts.
I'm Dan Largent, 2609 Hennepin Avenue South, property manager at Mint Properties, which has the bulk of our units in Whittier and Stevens Square. Our company does not choose to participate in Section 8, but we do have Section 8 residents through purchases and experience trying to work with the MPHA. However, we have worked with 30-plus nonprofits and other government aid organizations in the last decade to place those in poverty and in need into housing. Catholic Charities, St. Stephen's, such. We and other owners participate in these programs because they are true partnerships between the assistance organization and the property owner, which Section 8 is not in our experience. They, like public housing, have separate contracts to both protect their client and the organization from abuse, but they do so without being onerous, heavy-handed, and superseding our own lease terms. These organizations are timely in how they handle inspections and payments, and their goal is to find and maintain safe housing for people, not make the process more difficult. We've had contract inspections that failed for non-livability concerns, resulting in temporary homelessness and loss of rent. Nonprofit inspection would not place a resident in jeopardy like that. MPHA has repeatedly shown that it'll gladly delay residency and payment for bureaucratic process. Currently, we are being forced to give vacate notice to several Section 8 residents because MPHA refuses to issue a simple paper check for payment. It is currently, to me, a monolithic, uncaring, and inflexible program. It can be that way because it is optional. Many of the residents we are placing through these programs are through supportive services, so they are more challenging by far than a Section 8 voucher holder would be. The average voucher holder has none of these challenging issues like chemical dependency or transitions from homelessness that we are gladly accepting. We would participate in Section 8 without hesitation and no need for a mandate if their process worked as smoothly as it does with these other housing programs. I want to dispel the myth, lastly, that we, as property owners and managers, reject Section 8 based on assumptions about the quality of the tenants. Our objection has 100% to do with the program and nothing to do with the people that it attempts to support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Christina Hearts next. After that, it's Bernadette Horning.
Hi, my name is Christine Hart, and I'm a renter in Minneapolis' 7th Ward at 1300 Yale Place. I also work for Community Action Partnership of Suburban Hennepin, which is a social service agency serving residents of Hennepin County, including Minneapolis. And many of our clients do rely on housing choice vouchers to secure adequate housing. One of the most disheartening things that I see in my role is that there are many apartment buildings that are changing their rental practices and policies, whether that's due to new ownership or just a change in business model. And these changes oftentimes are including a rent increase, even stricter screening criteria, and almost always housing choice vouchers are no longer being accepted. I have seen from one apartment building, 38 families get displaced because of their vouchers, another 100 families because of their GRH subsidy. In other buildings, 23 more families getting displaced because of their voucher, 18 more families, and the list goes on. And I'm learning that it's not just happening in these large buildings. Case managers at CAPS can vouch that this is happening nearly every week in duplexes, fourplexes, and eightplexes across the region. To see the trauma that being uprooted brings to a family who now has to move, leaving their home, oftentimes losing access to reliable transportation and their ability to get to their job, children who have to leave school and change schools in the middle of the school year, is absolutely heartbreaking. and then to have to explain to them that this is legal and this is just business as usual. So I wanted to be here today to applaud the city on taking these next steps. This is the right thing to do, and the positive impact that this ordinance will have on our families is invaluable. So thank you for your leadership on these housing solutions.
All right, our next speaker is Bernadette Horning, and after that, Jennifer Spalding.
Good morning. My name is Bernadette Horning. My address is 1000 West 22nd Street, Minneapolis. I'm here today to speak on behalf of Horning Companies. We own and manage nearly 2,000 apartments in Minneapolis and employ over 100 people in the city. As you are well aware from the press, I do not support this mandate. And let me be clear, this is a mandate. I also want to go on record saying that I strongly oppose the characterization of property owners and managers who do not participate in Section 8 as somehow unethical and discriminatory. Now, why should you listen to me or believe a thing that I'm saying? I've spent my entire career working on housing issues in the Twin Cities, at PPL, at the City of Minneapolis, at Sherman Associates, and now for my family. I'm on the board of Common Bond and the MHA Board of Directors, and I want you to know that I understand these issues from a practical, social, and academic perspective. I'm not a greedy landlord trying to save a dollar and not deal with poor people or people of color. Please listen to me and my colleagues who work with these programs every day. Reform is needed, but this mandate is not the answer. My objection is squarely to HUD's Section 8 contract and not to the people that the program serves. They are being underserved. You would all agree that there's a shortage of entry-level housing in our city. At Horning Companies, we take great pride in our role of providing excellent, well-priced housing to many segments in the market. We do participate in Section 8 and other rental subsidies at some of our properties, so I understand these programs. I also understand my business model, and I'm concerned that forcing property owners and managers to participate will upset a stable but fragile part of the market. It is irresponsible to pass this ordinance and say we'll deal with the technical implications later. The devil's in the details with these government programs, and there are lots of critical technical details that will have serious unintended consequences if this passes now. Proponents have said that voucher holders are a small segment of the market and this won't have an effect on the larger rental market. Where's the data to back up that assertion? We're relying on anecdotal evidence and assumptions. I believe that all owners, managers, renters, and voucher holders deserve better than that. I implore you to slow down and take a measured approach. What's the rush? Why do we need to jam this ordinance through? Let Mr. Russ implement reform in MPHA. Engage a group of stakeholders from all sides of the issue to sit down together in the same room instead of taking private meetings with different constituencies.
Thank you,
For
Ms.
me,
Horning.
this isn't politics. This is my business, my family's business for 3 generations. And we care deeply about this city and want to be a model to the rest of the country of what public-private partnership looks like. Again, I
Ms.
ask you
Hornig,
to
we
table
need
the
you to
proposed ordinance
cease
and focus
let
on
the next
reform.
person speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next speaker is Jennifer Spalding, and after that, it's Jim Victorson.
I'm Jennifer Spadini, 3178 Dean Court. I own Guardian Property Management, a property management company active in all wards of Minneapolis. I manage Section 8 properties, properties with subsidies, and market rate properties with no subsidies. Every day I interact with inspectors, program managers, and residents. While the Section 8 program is well intended, it is flawed. Briefly, I would like to present a common example you may not have considered. Unlike subsidy programs, Section 8 does not allow for mutual lease termination. Normally, should challenges come up like drugs, weapons, non-payment of rent, I, as a property manager, have the flexibility to come to a mutual agreement with the resident to terminate the lease. Just like any contract, the parties can mutually agree to modify the arrangement to minimize adverse impacts to both parties. In the case of a landlord-tenant arrangement, such a mutual agreement would allow the resident to find other housing without an eviction on their record. Under the Section 8 program, there is no opportunity for lease termination by mutual agreement. The landlord is forced to evict the resident. The resident would have that eviction on the record for 10 years. Finding housing for them would become almost impossible. Through this process, you've heard of difficulties with the inspection process, the difficulties with moving in residents so they can have a home, and other programmatic difficulties with Section 8 in the city. All of these examples are why Section 8 is intended to be voluntary in the first place. The landlord's inability to work with a resident is a crisis situation, and forced evictions brought on by Section 8 is yet another example of why the program needs reform before mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baldini. I am sorry about mispronouncing your name. Mr. Victorson is next, and then after that is Layla Robertson.
Greetings. I'm an inner city landlord near North Minneapolis. I have 46 rental units, total of 5 properties. Where the problem comes in is I got rid of my last 2.
Sir, can I get your address for the record?
Maple Plain, Minnesota. Would you like the full address?
If that's
2893 Lakeshore Avenue,
Thank
Maple
you.
Plain, Minnesota, 55359. I got rid of my last 2 Section 8 residents when no longer they required direct deposit. They would no longer give me a check. Many times I would not receive a check and I had to fight for it. What the problem is the 1-year lease. Where I have problems is when I have a resident turn bad, I have to get them out quickly so that I don't ruin the rest of my residents. I just was meeting with Officer Killebrew on Monday. I had to give a notice to a resident because they had threatened another one of my residents. I give them a notice that says no reason given. They're out of there in 30 days. My good resident, therefore, will stick with me for those 30 days. Where I have, if it was with Section 8, I'd have to accumulate this much paperwork. I'd have to go with legal aid, Doug Clark. I'd have to face the housing referee, and it's too slow. I can't move fast enough when you have problems like I have inner city North Minneapolis. Okay, right now I have 12 GRH. GRH is working well for me because I have a social worker that I can call. Omar was drunkenness in the hall on Friday night and was pounding on apartment 22's door. I notified Start Today that I have a problem and we'll work through this quickly. If he doesn't, they're out of there. And so this is how I have to operate my business in the inner city, North Minneapolis. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Ms. Robertson, and after that is Jim Kerbin.
Good morning, Chair Yang, Chair Goodman, and members of the committees. Before I begin with my formal comments, I would like to correct something on the record. MPHA, in fact, does allow mutual terminations before a lease is done. With my work at Legal Aid, I've done that on a number of occasions with my clients, so mutual termination is something that can happen. My name is Layla Robertson. I'm a staff attorney at Housing Justice Center, and on behalf of my organization and Mid-Minnesota Legal Assistance, my former employer, I ask that the committee supports the ordinance change. A vote for the ordinance is a vote for access to affordable housing. According to the Met Council, 1 in 4 renters in the region are severely cost burdened. That is, they pay more than 50% of their income for rent. Section 8 vouchers relieve this cost burden. However, it doesn't matter if landlords don't take the voucher. And we know from Homeline's 2016 survey that of the Minneapolis properties surveyed that were within voucher limits, so they were affordable under the voucher, only 23% accepted the vouchers. So that means that over 3/4 of those doors were closed to voucher holders. A vote for the ordinance is a vote for civil rights and housing equity. As you've heard over and over again, data from MPHA shows that over 85% of voucher holders are people of color, and over half are families with children. The most recent draft of the addendum to the analysis of impediments to fair housing listed as its first recommendation, not its top, but the first one listed, a call for the core cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul to, quote, work toward enactment of source of income protection specifically covering housing choice vouchers. They also recommended that other cities in the region collect data in order to demonstrate the need for source of income protections and to advocate for local legislation. That is in reaction to community engagement processes that over and over and over again talked about how people can't place and use their vouchers. A vote for the ordinance is a vote to give true choice.
Thank you, Ms. Robertson.
If you can wrap
Your
up.
time is up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
True choice to members of our community who use vouchers to support their choice to live where they want, not where they have to live. Over my 11 years at Legal Aid, I heard over and over again how clients
Ms.
wanted to
Robertson,
use
I'm
their
sorry, I
vouchers.
need to cut you off.
That's okay.
Everyone can submit the rest of their prepared comments to the left.
Okay,
to the
I
city
will.
clerk.
I'll submit
Thank
written
you.
comments. Thank you.
And after the speaker is Samuel Graham.
My name is Jim Kerbin. I live at 5625 Xerxes, which is on the Minneapolis side of Xerxes. But more importantly, for the last 5.5 years, I've worked at 1000 West Franklin. It's the Belmont Apartments, which participates in the voucher program. It also serves a population that may be involved with the GRH program. But in any case, all participants or residents are cut off when they exceed $36,000 a year in gross income. So my suggestion today is that I see this level playing field that this ordinance is attempting to create. And yet my experience shows me in the last 5.5 years that people who participate in a GRH program or have no sort of housing assistance at all but are still moderate income are 10 times more likely to be a resident at the Belmont than someone with a voucher. And as I thought about this, the reasons that I came up with are primarily related to personal resources. First of all, people with vouchers in many cases may be burdened with mobility issues. And by that, I mean they rely maybe more on public transportation. They're not able to respond as quickly when there is a vacancy. Additionally, their personal resources in terms of cash available for down payments, for paying those pesky fees that landlords charge, that kind of thing, again, seems to be more of an issue. But finally, when I look at GRH programs, their success, I think, is dependent on the fact that they have an advocate. And I see nothing in this proposal that would give an advocate, someone to help these people. And in fact, the last 4 housing choice voucher participants who became residents at the property I manage.
Mr. Urban, I need you to wrap up.
All seem to have an advocate who came and helped them. And to me, that's the difference. It's not really the landlord, because in any case, we accept all comers. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Mr. Graham. And after that, our next speaker is Tasha Weisenburger Pomeroy.
Hello, my name is Samuel Graham. I live at 3457 Central Avenue Northeast. And I started at Crossroads in Richfield. And we got, I guess everybody else got a letter to get put out, but I was given a phone call. And it's in May, and they want me out in May. And so that moved me to an apartment that is overran by a slumlord, and we are infested with fungus on the walls and in the ceiling, who is constantly being covered up with plaster instead of fixing the problem. Cover. And we're plagued by bugs that we can't get rid of because they won't take care of the matter. So we're forced into situations, and it's becoming unhealthy. My ceilings are at the place right now where it could fall on me while I'm taking a shower. So, and it's a serious matter. And so that is the situation that I am under, and most of us are under. We become plagued by these slumlords who are getting away with it every year by giving false information to the city that they have handled the matter. And it is becoming worse and worse that they're getting away and not taking care of the situation that is there. Thank you.
Please come on up. And our next speaker after you would be Peter Coyle.
Good morning. My name is Tasha Weisenburger Pomeroy. I live at 4323 4th Avenue South in Minneapolis, and I am an employee of Aon, a local nonprofit developer and provider of affordable apartments and townhomes. I'd like to thank the council for the time to testify on this important issue. I'm here to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance changes to prohibit discrimination with regard to public assistance funding. I work at Aon because I believe in our mission to provide quality, affordable homes that strengthen lives and communities. Over the past 12 years, I have met and heard the stories of hundreds of Aon residents for whom finding affordable housing was a real challenge. I heard horror stories about the apartments they were living in before coming to Aon and their joy at finally finding a quality, safe, affordable place to live. Aon has 2,742 affordable apartments, about 20% of which are project-based Section 8. And another 20%, or 600, of Aon's apartments are rented to households with vouchers from a government agency, the majority of which are Section 8 vouchers. While my colleagues at Aon agree that with private landlords that the Section 8 system is inefficient and must be fixed, we do support the effort to require landlords to accept Section 8 vouchers. We believe that most landlords just want to help provide homes in a simple, reasonable, functional way, and an improved system would go a long way to incentivize landlords to use the program and serve more people. Like Aon, I strongly support the effort to require landlords to accept Section 8 vouchers. Doing so will allow more of my Minneapolis neighbors to live where it makes sense for them, for access to school,